You. Can you hear me? I got an echo on that.
All right. Well, where do we go?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm on 318 now. All of a sudden.
I see it. I just got it. I got it in my notifications. All right. Can you hear us or no?
But do we have to tell those? We got to tell these guys that.
Yeah, I need to give them the new link.
But
can you hear it right now, Mickey?
I hear you.
All right, cool. Let me let's get some people up in here real quick.
Wait. I can't write. It says hide chat replay. Oh, I'm on the old one?
Yeah. Yeah, just a second. I just need to send a new link out because there's only 4 people here, so just need to fix it real fast. Then we can edit this out or whatever. All right, I'm gonna send you the new one, Pete, if you don't have it.
All right.
Now we'll get started here. All right. Hello and welcome to another edition of the CBB Super Show. I am your host, Walter Waddell, aka Dub Deuce 85, joined as always by my main man, Pete Cole. Sorry about the technical difficulties that we had this morning. No big deal. Still have my dog doing the same exact thing she was doing as of the last intro 5 minutes ago, playing with the cat and the fish. So hopefully that doesn't distract you guys too much. Pete, 4-game slate. It's the last 4-game slate of the year. They may in the Elite Eight have a 2-day slate, which they've done in the past, but our last true, get paid same day 4-gamer of the season. Let's hit it hard. Let's make some money. How are you feeling about things as we wind down to the final 4 of the tournament?
Yeah, I like the slate. I like it a lot. I like it a lot better than yesterday. There's some value. There's probably too much value today, but it's better than struggling with it yesterday. So I think it's gonna be a good day. I think just today's the type of day you play smart. If you're playing cash, don't overthink it. There's plenty of super studs, super elite guys, and value plays, and and if you have some experience, should be a day where you can probably beat out the DFS March players. So I think it's gonna be a good day.
For sure. Yesterday, very interesting day. Ended up being lower scoring, which we thought it might be. That just a quick recap. That Loyola game was pretty brutal for them. They couldn't make a shot, seemingly. Oregon State took advantage of that. Our man Alatisha with a nice double-double, but it was really Houston taking care of business against Syracuse like we thought. Gorham had a nice game. Grimes kind of let us down. He was upward of 30, just not the 50 that I was hoping for. Arkansas and Oral Roberts was an amazing game. I think that Oral can hold their heads high. Fun team. I would imagine that A. Smith is gone to the pros. His stock will never be higher. But Oral has a very good opportunity to come back. So I really like that team. But Arkansas prevailed. Great game by our man Devontae Davis, who has a big star. Baylor took care of business in Villanova, sucked in the first half, but then they just kind of put their foot on their necks and didn't let up there. So. Baylor versus Arkansas and Oregon State versus Houston is what came out of there. Today, the other side of the Elite Eight will be, figured out here. We start the day with Gonzaga, Creighton. Well, actually, I guess we technically start the day. There's an NIT showdown for those of you who are rocking the NIT between Memphis and Mississippi State. So that is on the slate at the end of this show. If anybody wants to hear about that, we can kind of give our initial thoughts on that and who we might like just real quick. But we will start off here with Creighton versus Gonzaga. In the YouTube chat, if you have any questions, comments, concerns, anything throughout the show that you would like to ask or throw out into the universe, please feel free to post that, and we will acknowledge your existence throughout. Creighton versus Gonzaga. Ken Palm has it 86-74 in favor of the Zags. Their 4th tempo ranking, Creighton 143. Creighton has done well to get here. I did not think they would, make it past the Gauchos, who I was very high on. Amadou Sow, I bet, will always go up strong on a dunk now going forward because Creighton really, I just don't think they should be here. However, they took care of business against Ohio and impressively. So they definitely deserve to be here with that win. Gonzaga, business as usual, rolled through their first round opponent in Norfolk, rolled through Oklahoma pretty confidently and comfortably. Drew Timme broke the slate. Creighton, one thing they're not going to want to do here is play an up-tempo style, which they typically do. Creighton, they're very comfortable, running up and down and outscoring their Big East brethren, but they just can't afford to do that with Gonzaga. So they're going to have to, rewire their brains a little bit and slow things down and really try to, minimize the amount of possessions that Gonzaga can have, because if they get into a shootout here, they will lose by 20 plus. There's really no doubt in my mind. Total on this game is 158. Similar situation as yesterday with that Oral Roberts Arkansas game. It's damn near 20 points higher than everything else. UCLA game's 145, Oregon 138, FSU 143.5. So significantly high. You're going to want some exposure here. I know people are gun shy on the Zags because their prices are always so high. They don't make value all that much together as a group. They just kind of, sleepwalk through first halves. But we're getting to the point in the tournament where they're going to have to give their best shots. They can't keep starting slow against these next few opponents, assuming they advance here against Creighton, because it will ruin them. I think it starts for me on DraftKings, Drew Timme, on FanDuel, Jalen Suggs. Timme is 8-2 here on DraftKings, Suggs 8K. Both are extremely good options, and I know people are going to say, oh, not again. But the Zags are just too good to fade here. Their floors are high. They're going to score a lot of points, and there's just a lot of safety here. Suggs, he only had the 28 fantasy points last time out. 8K still reasonable for him to go 4X plus. Again, in this point, games start to, slates start to end up being a lot lower scoring as the teams, and, as we get through rounds, defensive teams start to separate themselves. So you really want those high floor plays, and that's what Suggs going to offer you. He did look a lot more comfortable in that second round game, I'll say. Against Norfolk, he's in foul trouble, and you could see there was nerves there for the freshman. Against Oklahoma, he looked much more comfortable, and I'm a lot more comfortable and myself with him and confident. He does have a usage rate over 25%, a shot rate over 23%, his assist rate is over 23%, and he has a steal rate just south of 4%. Currently, he's drawing 4.5 fouls per 40, so Suggs is that dude. Timme exploded, like I said, for 50-plus points in their win over the Sooners. The Blue Jays defense started the season really good, and it took a while for us to really, kind of get that out of our minds. They still, on paper, have a good defense, but they're giving up a lot of fantasy points. And especially in the post. I know Christian, Bishop has looked better defensively recently, but I think Timme, if the Zags want, they can pound the ball into him time and time again, and I think he could have another big game here for us. His usage rate's 26.6%, his shot rate's 25.8%. His offensive rebounds sailed over 11% at this point, combined rate of 30%, block rate 2.7. But the big thing here is he's drawing 6.6 fouls per 40, which is top 20 in the country in terms of fouls drawn. You typically see guards, with these high foul rates, but, you have a big man here, a very skilled footwork big man that is going to give Bishop, Kalkbrenner, whoever ends up having to primarily guard Timme in a lot of trouble. So I even though Bishop, today projects well on multiple sites, I would be very concerned about using him. And if he's going to be super high owned, I think you just fade him and hope for the foul trouble here. So Timme and Suggs are cash plays for me. On the other side, Creighton, I think Denzel Mahoney, he started off the season on fire, cheap, really good. He's really been quite pedestrian recently throughout March. Bad time to go cold. He's just not making his shots. But at this price, he's still getting the minutes, so we have to chase those. 470 is a much better value right away than Fabian White, Keith Clemens, Mo Kulu, all those values that we kind of had to plug our nose and plug them in. Mahoney's immediately the best value on the option when you consider what we had yesterday. So I definitely like him. Shot rate's over 25%. His usage rate's over 22%. His steal rate of 2.5%. He has taken 192 triples. So you've got that volume there. He's shooting about 33%. Not a great number, but anything over 30%, you'll definitely take on that kind of volume. It's not like I expect him to go 30, 40 plus against the Zags, but at 4.7, he should be able to give us 4X, even against a Gonzaga, defense. So I think his floor today is hovering around 17, 18 fantasy points, which we'll gladly take, but I think he'll sail over 20. Davian Jefferson is the other kind of, for me, cash play on Creighton, more so than Bishop and Zags, who I know will be highly owned probably because of their projections, but I just feel like Jefferson and Mahoney are the better plays. Jefferson coming in, at 5'6", he did score 27 fantasy points against Ohio in that dominant win. He's taken double-digit shots pretty much every game. He does contribute in rebounds, steals, assists, all those other categories. His usage rate is now over 20%. His offensive rebounding rate is 6%. Steals rate's 2.2%. So Jefferson does do enough at 5'6" to really warrant consideration there too. You're going to want a lot of exposure here at 2 Zags at minimum, and 1 Creighton guy at minimum. But I could see you coming out of this one with 4. Legit Mahoney, Jefferson, Suggs, Timmy as a start. If you want to go to Zags at 7K, totally understand it. Bishop at 6'1", Ballack at 5'3". The starting 5 for Creighton is really in play here. Zags, he's going to have to be a big-time producer today if they want to, keep up with this Gonzaga offense. I just see him having some trouble here. Not that he'll wilt in the moment, but I do see him having a lot of turnovers. If he doesn't come out on fire, then I could see him just really not even pay off that 7K price tag. Maybe have a game similar to Jared Butler, perhaps. So maybe it's a bold take, but that's just how I've been with Zags this year. He's another of those players, not to the level of Garza, but he's one that's always chalk. And I've faded him a lot this year, and it really hasn't punished me all that much. Against the Bobcats, though, he did have 23 and 2, which is encouraging to see. He made 44% of his 16 shot attempts. He is making 42% of his triples on the year. He's taken 183. So for me, he's a big-time GPP play, but I do think other sites are going ahead and rolling him in their main lineup. So if that's the case, then I probably wouldn't even use him in GPP. I think I would just leverage somewhere else. Corey Kispert, let's talk about him for a second. 7.5K. He burned a ton of people with just 22 fantasy points. You see 3 of his last 4. He's been under 30. That likely keeps his ownership down, but I think he's a great leverage spot off a Chalky or Timmy or Suggs because shot rate's still 25.7%. He's the 7th best offensive rating in the country. He hasn't really had an explosion game per se recently. He's a 90% free throw shooter, a 46% 3-point shooter. So it's any time. The big Corey Kispert game is on the horizon. It will, if it's not now, it'll be the next game. I really feel strongly about him producing. There's a lot of merit to just going with the 3-man Gonzaga stack yet again. You could go down to IIE with Kispert at 400 more. It makes sense to go there, but Joel IIE is a triple-double upside type of player because of his 5-category contributions. So I definitely like him. And then Nemhart's down to 5.1K, which, he's the 5th, 6th Beatle, whatever, but 5.1 is really cheap. He is going to play, 25, 30 minutes. He has the 77th best offensive rating in the country, a 20% assist rate, a 2.1% steal rate. So he's definitely a guy to consider. And if you really want to go down to 4-4, Antoine Watson, if you think, maybe you want to play the Timmy fade in a GPP, roll him out there. He had 38.5 fantasy points in round 1, 16.5 in round 2. Pretty reasonable price. He's going to play around 20 minutes. If you think the other guy's getting into foul trouble, he could play 25. I think he could definitely squeeze out a 4.5, 5x number at the 4.4. I've been a pretty big fan of Watson for the 2 years he's been here. I watched him in high school. He's a local kid from around the area. And maybe I'm a bigger fan than him than the rest of the industry, but I definitely think he has game and can pay off this 4-4 price. He is a 72% shooter on his 2-point field goals, by the way. So he takes a lot of high percentage shots when he is on the floor. So Pete, a lot of stacking options. It's the first game of the slate. Yesterday the first game was ugly. We really only had the values out of it. And then we had the more exposure later in the day, but it seems like today's flip-flop, we're probably going to have a lot of more exposure early to the point where we'll know if our slate's over early or if we're going to have a good day. So what are you thinking here?
I know this is kind of out of left field. Who's a really good on-ball defender for Zags is Aaron Cook. Not DFS wise, but his name has popped up on my screen. All right, so I totally agree with you on almost everything you say, so I don't have to go back and repeat all this. So I Kispert and all that stuff. The one thing where me and you may be different is on Zagorowski. I haven't used him a lot this year because this season he's having, and the few times I've used him, I've been right. So I'm not sure if that's luck or I'm not the sharpest knife in the drawer, but as you were talking, I was looking at some of Zeg's stats and stuff too. But he's obviously gotten much better. We're seeing the old Zag, especially in the tournament. In the tournament, he's averaging 18.5 points, 5 assists, shooting 52% from the field, 53.8% from the arc, which are good numbers. I see him, and I was trying to find Reeves' stuff. I see him as kind of a smaller version of Austin Reeves. And we saw what Reeves did to Zaga last week, 27 points. They work well off those high ball screens that they can create for themselves, their teammates. And Zagorowski is actually a better distance shooter than Reeves, while Reeves is better in the lane. But we saw what Reeves could do. So I could kind of see that happen with Zagorowski today. Obviously, Gonzaga probably worked all week on how Reeves killed them on those ball screens. But this is what Zagorowski is going to do also. So, and they kind of runs kind of a very similar system with Zeg running it than like Reeves does with Oklahoma. So it's just Zeg's got a bunch of 3-point threats around him. You know, guys like Ballack, Mahoney, and Jefferson. So I'm probably more on Zeg than you are. Is he main lineup? I'm not sure. I do like the price of 7K. I see him as the one guy that could have a big game for Creighton. I'm not gonna touch Bishop in the main lineup. I'm probably gonna go with Mahoney mainly because of the price, and I'm just curious as to how popular Mahoney's gonna be, because positive regression's got to be coming with this guy eventually here too, right? I mean, he's really struggled. We know that, but he still has the same role, and he's still getting over 30 minutes per game. The last 4 games, though, he's only made 11 of his 48 shots, 22%. But here, this guy is pretty much. I just saw the first 3 years of Creighton, he averaged 42% field goals. So it's not like he's a horrible shooter. He's in a slump. So eventually, positive regression is got to be coming around for this guy, and he's got the peripherals. So I'm on Zeg, probably Mahoney, and then I guess you got to make a decision on Timmy. I made a great decision on Timmy last week, and I used him. Can use Timmy and Suggs. I was very surprised last week how Suggs was 80% owned in cash games. I didn't think he would be. I thought Timmy would be the guy that was over owned, and he was only like 18%. So, yeah, I'm probably going to put 4 guys. So probably Timmy, Suggs, Zeg, and Mahoney. I hate doing that, man, but I think you almost have to. But the other guy that does intrigue me is Nemhart at 5-1. And I didn't even realize last game, he played 38 minutes last game. He had 38 minutes, 27 minutes, 40 minutes. So he's another great spot for salary relief at 5-1. It's not going to take much for him to pay that off either. So is he a main lineup type deal? Probably not. But he's really looked good. So my whole main lineup is going to be: am I going to play Zeg or not? Because if I don't play Zeg, I'll probably be taking someone from another game. But I want Mobley from USC, and that's a big price I got to pay too. So there's some decisions we got to make today. The slate is not as easy as I thought it was once we get talking here, but you want at least 3, probably 4 from this game.
Nice thing about Nemhart is, he doesn't take a ton of shots. He can be selective because of who he's around, but he still has a decent. He's a really good passer. He was a great passer. Had a high assist rate at Florida last year. So it's just that another ball handler on the floor. If Suggs gets rattled as a youngster, or IIE gets into foul trouble, like they are able to have him on there, controlling the pace of the game, initiating the offense, and he's a great defender. On ball, the opposing team's point guard. So. He's a really solid option to get out there for 30+ minutes, and he will contribute in other categories. So he gets overlooked a lot, but he's a good play, definitely.
I could see maybe some people run like a Nemhard / Timmy or Nemhard / Suggs, and maybe pulling one of those big guys out too, if you want to go maybe to a Mobley later on. But I think my decision would be Zagorowski, and do I run both Suggs and Timmy, and if I don't, which one? So.
Yeah. Yep, and then if you're running multiples, get some Kispert exposure there, because he's going to be low owned, and I definitely think he's going to.
This could be the Kispert day too. So
it's definitely coming. I see 30+ from him. So all right, next game, Florida State versus Michigan. Ken Palm has a 75-71 in favor of Michigan. They're 246 tempo ranking, FSU 90th. I do think that the Michigan, impressive second round game by them over LSU. I did think the winner of that LSU St. Bonnie's game would knock them out, and it didn't. I do think they're going to struggle here with FSU's length. Michigan, this is where their guard play is really going to have to step up. And Eli Brooks and Mike Smith have both played well. So it's not as if they played bad and they need to step up. They've played good, but they need to play great if they're going to advance here over FSU. One thing about it is, if Livers is, out not playing, whatnot, FSU still has this endless amount of bodies, long, lengthy, athletic, just harassers on defense, and he can run 10, 11, 12 guys at you, and they each have 5 fouls. You're gonna come out of this banged up and beat up. So I do think guys like Dickinson may struggle with this length. Wagner is gonna have a big game, but really it's gonna come down to Mike Smith and Eli Brooks. Both are priced way up. Smith 6'1", Brooks 6'7". Like I said, guard play wins, in the tournament. Brooks is having a really good tournament. Actually, he scored 30 fantasy points or more in 2 straight games. Mike Smith has been a pretty steady contributor. As their point guard, we saw him put up a 50 recently. So they're both definitely in play for GPPs because I think that if you think Michigan's going to win, it'll be on the back of those 2 guys. Franz Wagner 7'8". The price is a little high against FSU, but he has 26 plus fantasy points in 6 straight games. Defensive rebounding rates 19%. His block rates 3.5%. Steal rate 2.5%. And right now he's knocking down 37% of his 3-pointers, which is a solid increase from last season. He's become a much more, reliable long-range shooter, which is good for them. And then, like I said, Dickinson, he's 7'2", which is fine, but I think he's going to struggle today. I don't think that length is going to do him any favors. FSU side, it's tough. You have Scotty Barnes at 5'5" and Raekwon Gray at 6'2", and Balsa Koprivica at 5'1". Those are your 3 most playable Seminoles guys. The prices are great. Any normal rotation team, we'd be talking about running 2, maybe damn near all 3 of them. But minutes-wise are all over the place. Barnes would be cash playable if you thought he was going to play over 30 minutes. He's been under that 30-minute threshold in 4 straight, which is definitely concerning. His price at 5'5" is trying to bait us into it. He has a usage rate over 25%, a shot rate over 22%. Assist rates over 30%, which a lot of people don't even realize. 3.5% steal rate and a 7.5% offensive rebounding rate. So Barnes does a lot of good things here, and I think GPP wise, there's none better at that price point. But the minutes, 25-ish, 26 is just not enough to really have a slate breaking / gotta have it performance. He's probably going to hover somewhere between 21 and 25 fantasy points, and that's just not enough for what we're going to need. I know I just preached in the Gonzaga game about having high floor guys, and maybe perhaps Barnes at 20, 22 fantasy points gives you a high floor, but at the same time, you also want to put yourself in a position to have a couple, high upside guys as well. So Barnes is there at 5'5", but it's going to be tough for me to really pull the trigger there. Same thing with Raekwon Gray, 6'2". He'd been up over 8K at some points during the season. He's a really strong play overall. I think probably the best for the Seminoles today. Bit of a rough patch, wrong time of the season to really do that, but he's only hit value once in his last 4 games. Usage rates over 23%, shot rate over 22%. His combined rebounding rates just under 30%, and he's drawing 4.5 fouls per 40. So perhaps Gray can have a nice little breakout. He has major tournament experience. He's played well in the tournament in the past, so I'm a big Gray fan overall at the 6'2" price tag. I'm not sure I'll end up with him because, again, those minutes, 3 of his last 4, he's been under 30 minutes, and that's a little too concerning for me. If he's out on the floor for 30 plus, it's an auto guarantee that he's going to make value. As far as Koprivica goes, he has really solid rates overall, and I want to get some exposure to him. 22.4% usage rate, 21.9% shot rate. His offensive rebounding rate's over 14%, and it has an 8.3% block rate. So Koprivica is definitely a strong play as well at only 5'1", but he only played he fouled out last game, I should say, in 11 minutes, and that's always going to be a risk with him. He did have 4 fouls against UNCG the round before that, but he put up over 27 fantasy points, and he's had 27 plus in 3 of his last 4 games before the Colorado game in which he got into foul trouble. So he's a guy that if he can stay out of foul trouble, play the 25 plus minutes, he will also likely make value. But there are risks involved when you're dealing with the Florida State team. Anthony Polite has become, a lot of us, myself included, thought MJ Walker would be the next in line for that Trey Mann and Trent Forrest role, steady, guard play in the tournament. And he really hasn't stepped up. But last game against Colorado, when they needed the offense, Anthony Polite, showed out. In under 30 minutes, he put up 43 fantasy points. And if you look at what he's been doing recently, he's been over 22 in 3 straight and 5 of his last 7. So it seems like they're starting to rely on him more. He's a great on-ball defender. He's been a really strong play off the bench most of the season. But now that he's, finding himself in a position to play big minutes, he's really stepped up and shown himself worthy of that. So he's 6'3", which is really quite high to probably pay. But use that knowledge of him being low owned to maybe heat check him in one of your, alt lineups, because he could potentially still have a good game here against Michigan with the way things are rolling for him. So, Michigan upset. That's what I'm predicting here, Pete. What's your plan of attack with this game? Same old story with FSU. Deep rotation in March.
Would Koprivica be guarding Dickinson probably, right? I'm assuming.
I would imagine starting out, yeah.
Yeah, I really. This is. I mean, you're playing GBPs multi-entering, and you go at it with this game. Guys like Scotty Barnes, but I don't think there's one player you could safely say I'm going to use this in the main cash lineup. There's so many. All these guys can definitely have a great game. Like Gray. I mean, I can see Gray. What's his price? 6'2". I can see Gray having a good game. The problem is Florida State has that deep bench, and you know they get in foul trouble, they're gone. So you can't deal with Balls' freaking foul issues. He's had 5 fouls, 4 and 4 the last 3 games. Probably if anybody, I would probably look at a guy like MJ Walker at 4.9 because of the price. He's playing 30 plus, I believe, in the tournament. And Michigan is no pushover, and they got a good defense. But I think Walker's actually the team leader in 3 points. He's shooting 43.6%. All GBP plays. I would say Eli Brooks is a cash play, but you're absolutely crazy if you think I'm going to pay 6-7 for Eli Brooks. So come on. And I mean, I disparage him. He's really when Isaiah Livers went down, he's really stepped up and took it on that large role and actually played well. But still, I can't spend 6-7 on Eli Brooks. So I'm taking no one for this game in cash. But if I was making GBPs, I would be starting probably with a little Florida State stack, and then maybe running or maybe just a game stack just to be different. You know what I mean? So nobody can cash. Nobody's here for cash at all, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think I agree with you 100%. And then just
I'd love to play Scotty Barnes. I'd love to play him.
Yeah, definitely. And then just a little bit more love there for the polite low-owned GBP play. He has the best offensive rating on the team. He's actually 90th in the country, and he's a 44% three-point shooter, which is top 75 in the country. So good little heat check. Just a sneaky, kind of the price is high. People aren't going to pay it, potential for your big GPP takedown in those large fields, but obviously not a cash play. So next game here, clash of styles, UCLA versus Alabama. KenPom has a 74-70 in favor of the Tide. Their 11th tempo ranking, UCLA 337. This is another one similar to the Creighton-Gonzaga game where both those teams play high pace, but Creighton's going to have to slow it down. UCLA is a slow-paced team. They're comfortable slowing games down. So can they slow Bama down enough to win this game? UCLA does have the horses to, especially lately, to score a lot of points. But if they get into a three-point shootout or they want to run and gun, they will fall behind because Bama has a lot more scores, 1 through 10, as opposed to UCLA, maybe 1 through 3. And for UCLA, this, probably starts with Johnny Juzang. 7.4 is a little bit high, but he's really been good, coming over from Kentucky where he was just a corner stander there. Cronin has gotten in, to the point where he's letting him just take over games. He's a lethal scorer, big-time DFS player recently. If the Bruins are going to have the offense to keep up with Bama, it will be through him. So expect 18, 19, maybe even 20 shots from Juzang today. He does have a shot rate over 29%, which is huge. His usage rate's over 24%. He's making right around 36% of his triples on 139 attempts. So Juzang has the juice here. I definitely think he is worth your consideration. My favorite play is Jules Bernard. He has been my favorite Bruin play for a month now. The price is just really good on him at 5.8. He's quietly been the highest floor, safest UCLA player. Juzang's going to have that 50-plus upside, but he's going to have those spikes and those dips, whereas Bernard's just kind of, steady. You're going to see a straight line. He's playing over 30 minutes per game. He hasn't been under 24 fantasy points in a month, legit a month. So at, 5.8, 6K, he's right around that 4X marker. So that's great stability. And you give him the added bonus of playing in a higher paced game. There's going to be more rebounds for him, more assist chances, more shots, everything lining up for a big Jules Bernard game. So I love him. He is a core play for me today. Hopefully he will not be super high owned on the 4-game slate, if maybe everyone goes Juzang or even Tiger Campbell, who I'll talk about in a second. So Bernard is my guy in this one. He's also a 40% three-point shooter this season on 82 attempts. So if you look at his season-long rates, they're not eye-popping, but the last month, he really has been a fantastic player. And there were signs last season of him, being this guy. So I'm really glad he got the opportunity. Tiger Campbell's down to 4.8 now. Campbell started the season out, as a 5K, 6K guy. Then the price rose when he played well, but mid-season on, he's been in a slump. He's just not making a ton of baskets. His assist rate is still high. He's over 30%, but you've seen some games lately where he hasn't done much good of anything. But 4.8 is kind of in that Mahoney territory where you've got a guy that is not going to put up 30 likely, but he should put up 17 to 22, which is overvalue at 4.8. So, and he's playing over 30 minutes. He's a steady, he keeps UCLA calm, initiates the offense. He's a plus defender. So he's going to be on the floor a lot. Maybe not shooting or putting up the stats, but he should do enough at this price point to pay it off. So I could see running Barnes and Campbell together here. That duo with a guy like Mahoney, you're saving a ton of salary. You can get up to the Evan Rodleys of the world, the Drew Timmies, the Jalen Suggs, Herb Jones, whoever you intend to play. So Campbell, I definitely have to argue for him at 4.8. I haven't used him in a very long time, but the price is popping out here. Cody Riley's 5.5. He projects pretty well. He's been good. Always the issues with him are fouls, though, of course. Bama's front court is susceptible to getting dissected. They don't have a ton of guys down there that can draw fouls. However, it's either a dunk or a three for Bama. So if their guys are driving into him, would be a smart move. A lot of other teams, they have that plan when Riley's on the floor, drive into him, force him into bad spot, draw blocking fouls, hacks, everything. So do be careful using him, but right now he looks good. A good play at 5.5, 25.6% usage rate, 8.4% offensive rebounding rate. He's drawing 5.4 fouls per 40. He's a very high level GPP play in this spot against that Bama front court. You could probably talk yourself into using him in your main, but there's a lot of risk there. So I just want to put that out there. Jaime Jaquez at 6'6". He scored 25 plus fantasy points in 3 straight. 40% shooter on 82 triples. He has a combined rebounding rate over 21% and a block rate over 2.5%. So he's in play as well. Anytime you got Alabama on the slate, their defense is good. We've seen it before, but I do like the Bruins here in this spot. As far as Bama goes, I'm not really targeting them too heavily against UCLA. The one that doesn't make a ton of sense to me price-wise is Javon Quinterly at 5.9. His price has dropped $500 after putting up a big time, a good game. Dominant win over Maryland. He was a big factor of that. You got to give it to Quinterly. The debacle at Villanova, people wrote him off because he didn't play defense. He got fresh start at Alabama here, and he's playing really well. I think he's a pretty elite DFS play at this point. Usage rates over 24%, shot rates over 23%, his assist rates 25.5%. He's making 44% of his threes on this team. That's impressive. He's taken 113. Everybody on this team jacks. The fact he's making 44% is really, quite impressive. So I think he's my favorite Bama play at 5.9, even going against this Bruins defense. Now, these are Pete's guys typically, Herb Jones, John Petty, maybe a little Shackelford. I think they're probably in play after Quinterly. I'll get your take on Quinterly too. But, the prices are nice, especially Herb Jones at 7.7, but the level of volatility on Herb Jones had me scared. He did have, 17-minute foul buster game there, struggle against Maryland. So what are you going to be doing with Herbie and the rest of the Bama guys? And on the UCLA side as well.
This is a tough one. And you hit UCL pretty well. And UCLA a lot better than I do. So I think Bernard's the top play there. So this is going to be a tough game. This is a really tough game because UCLA. Remember at the end of last season how well UCLA was playing, and everybody was talking about the UCLA defense. Well, this is like going back a year ago. Like they're talking college basketball, and they're playing really well. And ever since they were down in Michigan State in that game, and Cronin went nuts in the locker room, they've turned around and they're playing elite basketball. Now they're going to have to be elite though to beat this Bama team. I mean, they're going to have to make every shot. They're going to have to play that defense, and they can. So it's weird, and I think UCLA can keep up with them. I still see Bama winning, but I think you're going to see some more points here than even the 145. So,
Yeah.
on the Bama side, yeah, I do like Petty. I think Petty's elite. I am worried about these fouls all of a sudden. Herb Jones. I am worried about the fouls. I mean, Herb Jones and his foul trouble is well documented, and he's actually been pretty good this year. I was just going through it. He hadn't fouled out since Arkansas game on 24th until Maryland. So he's got that reputation. It may not be as bad as we thought. In mid-January, he went through a couple games. He fouled. I think it was Georgia. So I think he's an elite play, especially at 7-7. If he was 8-5, whatever, I would say he's probably too much. But I think Jones still got to be considered an elite play today to me. And I'm kind of glad he got fouled. He got in the foul trouble against Maryland because they dropped his price. And he is, I just think him match up with his size may be a problem for UCLA. So Jones to me is the definite top play. Is he main? It's gonna be tough getting Jones in there with if you do play Evan Mobley and you want those Zag guys. So I'm not saying he's being my main lineup, but he's one of the options. Now my boy Petty. I mean, I'm gonna get. I used to be able to get. I used to get him right, and I liked it once again. Petty's at 6,000. I think Petty is a good play today, and maybe I am wrong because he's not projected that high. But I think we're back to seeing the Petty of old. And man, he really struggled. What was the game against Iona? He was 3 for 13, 3 for 8 from the free throw line, and he somehow still managed to get 10 points and had a decent DK game where I think it was maybe like 20 or something like that. And let me see. But the thing is, Oates still kept him in. He still played 31 minutes. And if he kept him in during those 4 games before that 4-game stretch, he was shooting like 27% from the floor, 27% from the 3-point range, and Oates still kept him in because he's a shooter. And you got to keep him in. And finally, he seemed like he got it right against Maryland, scored 20 points. He made 4 3-pointers. His confidence, and you could definitely see the confidence was back. And then when Petty's confidence is back, you definitely see it in the whole team. You see like guys like Quinterly were going crazy celebrating that one shot and he rose up from the corner in the 3. So when Petty's on, Bam is rolling. And if remember, he's a shooter and he's the type of guy that gets hot. So if he starts out hot today, he's going to roll, and that's where Bam is going to roll over. So I think Petty to me, I'm going to be probably a lot different than anybody else. Petty's close to a main lineup play at 6K just because after seeing what I saw last weekend and the type of shooter he is, he's got a big game here. So I like Jones and Petty. My problem with Quinterly, and the only problem with Quinterly is he going to get the minutes? Coming off the bench. So he hasn't played 30 minutes, right? That's my only problem with Quinterly because I think he at 5'9", that's a real. I mean, you may be onto something. If you look at his rates, man, he's at 24% usage. I mean, you actually may be onto something at 5'9". That's a nice pivot off somebody else in that area. So I'm just not. His minutes, one thing that worried me. At 21 against Iona, 28 LSU, 30 against Tennessee. Maybe you're onto something.
The Iona, to be fair, the Iona game he had 4 fouls. They were struggling. They were struggling against Iona there, and they just the minutes weren't there for him. But he's typically hovering around that upper 20, low 30s. He's the first guy off the bench typically. So yeah, maybe he becomes a sneaky play. Initially I thought he would be kind of on people's radar, but I see he doesn't project that well, and I don't know, man. I think he could be definitely a good play because he won't be the primary defensive target for the Bruins. They're going to be looking to stop Petty, Shackelford, and Jones before him.
Here's this just popped up. With Petty, when Petty hits 3 3-pointers in a game, Alabama's 13-1. If it wasn't for that Mitchell Smith block against Missouri, they'd be 14-0. When he doesn't make 3 3-pointers, they've lost 5 of 6 games. So that's just, and that's the best thing with Petty is you can tell the faith that Oates has in him. Is if he was just a shooter, there's no way would he been out there for 31 minutes against Iona. He would have been on the bench. So he just brings so much more to the team when he gets hot. A Petty game is coming, and if it doesn't come today, I'm wrong. But I'm not saying it's gonna be. If I'm making two lineups, he's probably my second lineup. I just think there's too much talent maybe for my first lineup, but he may be. I haven't built the lineup yet. I'm all in on Petty right now.
And the way that Bama plays, this pace, they do turn the ball over a high number, and that's been something that's been the major downside for Quinterly is his turnovers. But nobody on UCLA really has a high steal rate, and as good as the Cronin defense is, they're more about forcing guys into bad shots or, just the one rebound, one shot and out possessions. They don't force a ton of turnovers or steals. So looking at, UCLA's forced turnover rate, it's really not that high. It's actually bottom half of the of all of Division I, whereas Bama's steal rate is very high. But the UCLA offense doesn't turn over a lot. So I think where normally, Quinterly's worried with turnovers or Jones' high steal rates may be mitigated slightly because of the way that these two teams play. UCLA taking care of the ball on offense, but UCLA not forcing turnovers on the other end. So going to be an interesting chess match type of game and see who is able to assert their dominance and control the pace of the game, because it's going to be a fun one for sure.
I don't see it being
prices are good on everybody in this game. Is like good price except maybe Juzang, who I think is in play, but or Hawkes. They're trying to bait us into these prices, but it should be close if nothing else.
I don't think it's going to be a 14. I don't think Bama's going to hit the spread.
Oh yeah,
14 and a half. No, 6.5. Where am I seeing?
I was confused for a second. I was like, wait, what? I was about to
as the over under.
Oh, okay. I was about to go unload my bank account and everything I own and put UCLA. I was like, damn, get that point line now. Oh, no, you're good. You're good. All right, last game on the slate, Oregon versus USC. But real quick, yes, I agree. I think UCLA has a chance to cover as well, and I think the game will be close. But yeah, Oregon versus USC. This is the game I've been most looking forward to. I'm glad it's the hammer game. It's going to be the game of the day. Ken Pom has a 72-68 in favor of USC. 236 tempo ranking, Oregon 227. It's a bit deceiving because it shows that these teams, are on the slower side, but they will push the pace. It's just that they have a pretty, high level offense at times, and they produce a lot of fantasy points. So these two teams, they didn't end up playing in the Pac-12 tournament like we thought, what happened, but they did play once earlier this season, and it was a 72-58 win for USC. Running that game back real quick, Taj Edey was smoking from the field. He hit 6 triples. He had 24 real points, 4 rebounds. It'll be hard to imagine him shooting that good again. Evan Mobley had a horrific game. This was during that stretch where everybody's like, what the hell is wrong with him? He's not producing. He had 11 points, 5 rebounds, one of his lowest totals of the season. So keep that in mind. It may have, I think something was going on during that week or two where he was putting up kind of a low number. Drew Peterson had 15 and 11 off the bench. Big time producer. I love him today. Anderson actually got the start there. He had 6, 7, and 8. So a big game for Ethan Anderson. Isaiah White had 7, 5, and a block. So a pretty decent game for him, as he's typically cheap. And then I believe that was the game that Isaiah Mobley he was out that game. So that's why Anderson got the start, and probably why Peterson played 36 minutes. But Peterson has played well lately. We'll get to him in a second. Duarte wasn't much of a factor. He only had 11 and 5. Yuji Amarui had his worst game of the season. So even though Mobley struggled, he held EO in check. He only had 9 and 2. Figueroa had 14 and 5. He was kind of the top producer there. And then Eric Williams off the bench had 14 and 9. So things are probably going to look a little different now, but keep in mind that these two, shut down each other's primary players the first time they met. And now USC will have Isaiah Mobley, which they didn't, who's a plus rebounder, a plus shot blocker, and a plus defender. So this game may not be the all-out target, but you're definitely going to want some exposure here. Starting with the USC side, Evan Mobley at 8.5 is I'll stop short of saying it's a no-brainer play, but anytime he's under 9K, you really have to consider him. As I mentioned, he went through that rough patch in late February where his production was, 17, 19, just horrific numbers. But he scored 38 plus fantasy points in 5 straight. His usage rate's still 24%, shot rate 22%, offensive rebounding's hovering around 10%, combined over 30. He does have the a top 40 block rate at 9.3%, and he's also drawing 5.4 fouls per 40. That is where my concern comes in on Oregon, guys, because how often do we see guys like Duarte, EO, Figueroa, they get those 2 first half fouls? It happens all the time. And then the second half, they kind of figure it out. But we see Oregon guys pick up, and I don't have, a percentage for you or anything like that right at the moment, but it just seems like, and I watch a ton of Pac-12. I'm on the West Coast. They have at least 2 guys pick up 2 first half fouls every game. So I have concerns about, EO here. I love him as a GPP play. I have him actually as a cash play too, borderline cash, I should say. But I think there's definitely some risk here. So Moby, great play at 8.5. I think he shakes off and has a much better game than he did last time against Oregon. I would have no dismay there towards running him in all your lineups. Taj Edey 5.7 is a nice price. Like I said, he torched Oregon back in February. He's kind of had mixed results since. He has been over 21 fantasy points in 6 straight, but he really hasn't had that, blow up game in quite some time. His shot rate's over 23%. He is making 39% of his threes. He's actually attempted 158, which seems like a lot more than I would have even expected. He's been great for them, though, as a transfer, from Santa Clara, kind of giving them that guard play with Ethan Anderson hurt a lot. We saw how Oregon's offense played against Iowa. Obviously, Iowa defense non-existent. But we know this Oregon offense is very, efficient. So Edey's going to have to score to match up with these guys. If Will Rich keeps playing as good as he is, Duarte, expect Edey to play well. Drew Peterson, 5K. He's another guy, in that Tiger Campbell, Denzel Mahoney range. I love Drew Peterson today. I have been very fortunate. I think I've had him for all but one of his ham games. I've had a good read on him, and I do think this is a spot to go back to him at 5K. 20 plus fantasy points in 3 of his last 4. He's actually a 38% shooter from long range on 85 attempts. He came over from Rice, down competition at Rice, but he's really stepped up and he's looked good. I think he's a really good play at 5K. I would use him over Edey just for that 700 savings, maybe even a pairing partner with Evan Mobley. As far as the Oregon side of things go, I think it starts with Duarte at 7.3. It's a strong play in that low 7K range, but he is also a guy that, with his aggressive defense, high steal rate, one of the best on-ball defenders in the conference or in the country, he does get called for, fouls at a pretty high rate in the first half. We're gonna have to figure out how to pull that up. This would be an interesting stat, but Duarte's been a guy who's had to sit in the past month or so several times with the 2 early fouls. So keep that in mind. But his shot rate's over 23%. He has a block rate of almost 3%, a steals rate over 3%, and he's making 43% of his 138 triples. So he's improved on his 3-point shooting quite a bit this season, actually. LJ Figueroa at 6'9" may be my favorite play. It's only 400 difference to Duarte, so it might make more sense to go Duarte. But I just feel like Figueroa, he's gonna have to, he's not gonna have to guard the mob, the main Mobley brother, so he'll avoid that foul risk. And I don't think that anyone on the USC side can really match up with his athleticism. With Peterson likely guarding him, or maybe Edey at times. So I don't know. I just like him. He's 35 plus fantasy points, 3 of his last 5 games. I think he draws the softest part of the USC defense. That's why I like him. Offensive rating is top 85 in the country. He does have an offensive rebounding rate of over 7%, a 3.1% steal rate, and he's also shooting right around 40% on 118 3-point attempts. So a lot of guys on this Oregon team can hit the triple and take it in. LJ Figueroa will definitely need to channel the St. John's version of himself. To have any shot really against USC, because I do think a lot of people, myself included, feel like USC should handle business here. But if that Oregon offense shows up from last game, they're definitely going to be in the mix. And then it's just about, if you believe Will Richardson's going to continue this pace, 30 plus fantasy points, 3 of his last 4. He's almost up to 7K now. When Duarte got healthy, Eric Williams came in, he got healthy, and the team kind of shored up and got the rotation right. It seemed like Richardson fell off a bit. He was coming back from an injury as well, but like I said, the last 3 or 4 games, he's really looked good and playing the best basketball of his season. So I think you could check him in a GPP and just see if he can continue that. Does have an assist rate over 18%. He's making 42% of his threes. Another 40% shooter for this Oregon team. They're lethal from out there, man. And then Eric Williams at 5'4" is always typically in play. Rates are decent, 7% offensive rebounding rate, 19.5% shot rate, but he's kind of on that lower end. 5'4", you have Tiger, you have, Peterson, Mahoney, Jefferson, all in that range that I would rank above Eric Williams personally. So the hammer game, man, it's I think it has a chance to be the lower scoring game on the slate, I think, but definitely some guys coming out of here making value because of the high efficiency on both sides. What do you think?
Yeah, this is a tough one. As you're talking, I'm looking at numbers and stuff. I'm not sure I'm as into. Man, I don't know. I'm gonna be stuck on Mobley. This is gonna be my biggest decision all day. Am I gonna play Evan Mobley or not? It's a big
Yeah.
price that could be going somewhere else, to Herbie or to the Zags. But he's in the consideration. Evan Mobley's Evan Mobley. He's a stud. You know what I mean? So he's in play. Um, I think I like your Drew Peterson call. I think Peterson. I like Peterson better than Eddie, which is probably. I'm assuming a lot of people are going to be on Taj Eddie because he's been hot. He's been shooting lights out. He also had one of his best games of the season against this Oregon team,
Yep.
and that's because Oregon was able to contain Mobley. But is that going to happen again? You know what I mean? So of course, probably going to be double team him and all that. But I just can't see that happening twice. If it happens twice, and Oregon's got a hell of an interior defense. So I see Eddie being popular today at 5'7". I would take Drew Peterson if I had my choice. I just like the kid. He's a good shooter. He does everything right. That's my call. But on Oregon, and they're all going to be probably lower owned. I like your Figueroa call. At 6'9". I totally agree with you. I see, being from New York, and I read like the New York Post every day, and there's always a story about LJ Figueroa. They're always talking about him. He's from being in St. John's, and anybody remember, he had some good years at St. John's, and so it seems like that's all they talk about. But it's true. I mean, this guy had a touch season. He missed like the first game into all the COVID stuff. We're finally seeing the LJ Figueroa that we've all grew up with and love and know, because he can be a hell of a player. And he turned the Iowa game around by himself. When that one point in that game, they were down by like 5. They were down 42-38, and then Figueroa came in and blasted those 3-pointers, and that showed we all thought Oregon may come out flat. They actually came out fresh legs that game, and it was all on Figueroa. He ended up finishing 21 points. Yeah, and Duarte had 22. So I can see the same thing happening. Like you said, he doesn't have to be guarding the big guy. Is he main slate main line type of guy? I'm not sure, but he's my top play, I think, out of all these guys. I mean, it's a hammer game. I hate going into that. I'm not big on the superstitions, but I hate going into that with nobody in my lineup.
Mm-hmm.
To me, it always feels like it doesn't work when anybody's behind you with, one or two players. But to me, it's like if I don't have Evan Mobley, I'm not going to go into that hammer game feeling really comfortable. This is going to have to take some thinking. To me, I think Figueroa is the play out of all these guys. And if his damn price didn't go up, I mean, he's probably had a better tournament than his brother, right? And I don't think
He's looked good. He's playing his best basketball right now.
Yeah, he didn't play in the first game against Oregon.
Nope.
So they haven't had to deal with both of them. It's just his price jumped up so much. So I don't. I guess at the end of the day, I like Figueroa. He's my play there, and I got to decide, am I going to use Evan Mobley or not? It's just as Evan Mobley. We saw what Garza did to Oregon. And that's, I guess, that's probably Oregon's biggest problem, right? Is their height, because
it's for 2 or 3 seasons now. We have, and the rest of the industry's been slow on it. We've made good money, but the DVP spot against Oregon has typically been using interior players. So Evan Mobley should eat. I know he didn't do well against them in the first go round, but I think he's going to have a 40-plus game.
Yeah, their tallest starter is 6'6", and Garza had 36 points and 9 rebounds. So You're right. This should be a game that Mobley eats now, especially you got his brother back in this game. We're probably playing their best basketball, It's a matter of if I'm going to play Mobley in my main lineup. It's gonna be hard. It's gonna be hard to play Mobley, Suggs, and Timmy in your lineup. You know what I mean? It's gonna be or Herbert, who I like. So somebody's got to take a seat out, and he's got to hope you make the right move, the right call, because you pull one of those guys that has a 40 or 50 point game, you're done. So he's a top play. So out of this game, Mobley, and Figueroa will be my plays out of this game. That's it.
Yep, I agree, man. I'm with you on Mobley and Figueroa, and then, like I said, Peterson for me. So I could see potentially up 2-3 players from this game in your main. Definitely at least one, but that'll be the decision, Mobley or not. And I don't mind the fade. It's definitely a good DVP spot, but if you're able to balance out your lineup a little more, it would be to your advantage, I think. Yesterday, I made the tough call to move off Butler in main, and it worked, but then, of course, O'Banner was under 30, so it worked kind of, but then it didn't work because O'Banner didn't do that good. But yeah, you're gonna have to make that tough decision, because I think there's enough value to make it work, but there's also a lot of merit to going with that mid-range, stronger lineup to where you're not dipping out too low. Thankfully for us, we have Tiger, Mahoney. We do have cheap guys that are leaps and bounds better than what we had yesterday in Kalu, Ugiak, Clemens, those type of players. So. All right. So core wise, like on FanDuel, I think Suggs he's a little cheaper there. I would roll him. Bernard and Campbell are also very cheap, so I think I would roll those as a 3-man FanDuel core. And then right now the DK 3-man core is Bernard, certainly Mahoney, and then I have it Drew Timmy right now, but you make some compelling arguments for Mobley as well. And I like I said, I've made a lot of money over the last 2 years targeting that Oregon front court. I was all over Mobley in that bust game against Oregon where he didn't do well because I always use capable bigs. His price has decreased. His raw projection is very high across multiple sites. There's a lot to like here. So I'll have to decide between Timmy and him, and maybe I roll both and don't run Suggs. I'll be having to play around with it. I haven't quite gotten to a final build just yet, but I will certainly have to drop off one of, the Gonzaga guys or not run Mobley. And that's not a great decision to have to make, but maybe that's where we go with a Nembhard or an Antoine Watson as our secondary Gonzaga, exposure. Prize picks real quick. I have 4 in the article. I think my favorite is probably Chris Duarte over 2.5 assists. Definitely see him hit 3. Then Denzel Mahoney over 10.5 single points. Mahoney's going to have to shoot. He's been taking double-digit shots, so he's going to get the volume there. And then I like the Suggs 29.2 fantasy points. Steals and blocks are 3 on prize picks. He does enough in other categories to pay off a 29.2. So I like him for 30 plus. And then I also have listed here Drew Timmy over 33.3. Those are the 4 featured in the article, but there are several that I like. What are some that are popping out to you initially?
I like that Timmy one, but you already said that. These are tight today, man.
Damian Jefferson and 23.7. And then, like I said, I have the Mahoney single point, but you could even do Mahoney over 19.7 fantasy points too.
Yeah. This is, man, I don't really see anything else that maybe the Figueroa over 28.5.
He's got some good single ones too, like his rebounds 5.5, which maybe that's a little high, but he does have a single point total of 13.5. So if you think Figueroa can score 14 or more real points, I like the 13.5.
Scotty Barnes 9 points.
It's interesting.
He's gonna be
Definitely.
out there. I think he should be able to score 9 points, right, in a big game.
Yeah.
As long as he plays 25, 30 minutes, he should be 30 minutes. He should be able to play 9. He should be able to score 9 points. If not, he's not as good as we all think. Then if he's getting the minutes, but yeah, these assist and rebound ones are tough, and you really gotta dig in and start looking at stats, man. So you make some crazy decisions here. I like the Duarte assist 2.5. He should be able to get 3 assists, right?
Yeah, that's my top prize picks play listed is the assist.
Yeah.
That's definitely low for him. 3 assists should be a slam dunk, I would think.
Anybody else have any questions?
All right. And then also there is that Mississippi State Memphis showdown. If anyone's playing that, it locks here in about 45-ish minutes. Looks like some major overlay over there. Memphis is playing really well defensively. I'm actually shocked that Mississippi State handled Louisiana Tech yesterday without Tolu. But just to kind of throw a couple of plays out there, I personally like DeAndre Williams, Landers Nolly, or Lester Quinones as captain option. I think Memphis wins here, so I'm rolling with them. But yeah, you definitely want to run, a Molinar Stewart out. But I think the Memphis stack is what's going to win it for you on the showdown. They're playing really well right now. Their defense is phenomenal. I know I was calling them pretty elite yesterday, and like, well, if they're so elite, why aren't they in the tournament? They caught some bad breaks against Houston there during the season and whatnot, and they were only really, one or two shots away from being in the tournament. But I think that this is good for them. Postseason experience, winning an NIT title would be huge heading into next year. So that's where my head is at, Memphis on those guys. I think I will end up playing this slate just because of the overlay. But I'm a big DeAndre Williams fan. That
Fountain 4 and that 4.8 salary is pretty cheap for utility if you're going to play him. And I agree with you. If I was going to go cap, I think my call would be Keone's. At 6.6, that's his utility price though. But it'd be nice, and I don't think you'd see Keone's really high owned at captain either. I'm assuming it's gonna be something they're gonna be using Molinar or Williams, probably people. But
yeah, 9.9 at captain's not bad. I'm looking at that DeAndre Williams price. He's been under 30 in a couple games in a row, so maybe people back off of him. But he's just so damn good at filling it up everywhere else. Besides just plain scoring.
We'll get you Williams in your lineup easy at 8.8 too. So
yeah, definitely. All right, well, this is it, man. Last 4-game slate of the year. So we're gonna have a couple, Elite H things. Most likely just like a live Discord or maybe a podcast record where we will talk about the Elite 8 games for you guys, get you set up there. And maybe some, prize picks / betting like usual. So we're not completely done. This isn't the last of us or anything, but likely the last live stream for the season in college basketball. So I appreciate everybody who supported us throughout the year, everybody who helped, make that cool graphic, our producers, John and Mickey. Mickey was with us today. Devin, for all his hard work, G on the site. Pete, you've been an excellent co-host, everything I could have hoped for. I'm really glad that we worked together this season, and I look forward to many more.
It's been real, and we got MLB coming up. We'll have a show Wednesday night for the preview. Me and Walt are going to try to do something this year with MLB and WNBA, like a combo live stream, something like that to keep all you bucketheads alive. So that'll be fun. Whenever we forgot when WNBA starts. But yeah, thank you, Walt. It's been great, and it's been a good show.
Yeah, there'll be other niche things. Maybe the TBT DFS tournament will be back. True, that would be cool. WNBA, you got MLB, NHL. So we'll be around, man. Appreciate it. Thanks to everybody. Get over to that premium college Discord for any late news, starting info. If you just want to, chat over there. Thanks again for everybody's support. Good luck today. Let's win some money and take care. Good luck to Clow. He is in the final of the Mania tournament today. That's right. So hopefully he can bring it home for us and win it. So great job. Congrats to him. Thanks, guys. Peace.
Thanks, guys.